Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Insider, brought to you, as usual, by Vanishing Inc. My guest today is an ex-crossroader, and we're going to find out exactly what that means very shortly. Dustin, how are you this afternoon? This morning for you, this afternoon for me. Dustin Marks, hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hi, Damien. Thanks for having me as a guest.
It's absolutely my pleasure. What is a crossroader?
Well, the technical definition of a crossroader is a person who specializes in cheating the legal casinos.
Can you tell us a bit about your background and how you first got involved in the gambling scene in Vegas? Or did it start in Vegas? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it actually starts way back when I was 7 years old. My parents went out to Las Vegas. I'm from the Midwest. And they came back telling me how great it was. So since 7 years old, I wanted to go to Las Vegas and actually live here. 1983, I moved here, not knowing anybody, not having a job, not having much money. And I heard about Gary Darwin's Magic Club meeting, where all the top magicians would meet that live in Las Vegas. Took me a little bit, but I found it. And they were very welcoming. And I've met a lot of people, Paul Harris, Alan Ackerman, et cetera, Michael Skinner, Jimmy Grippo. And then I started asking who was the very best with a deck of cards. And one name came up that I never heard before, and they said he specialized in gambling moves. Well, long story short, I met him. We became friends, partners, and we started, as I would say, ripping and tearing the casinos. So I was turned out by, in my opinion, the best who ever lived. And this guy was light years ahead of the casinos, not only in the moves, and the moves are important, but the psychology is much more important.
Okay, I want to know how that conversation goes, man. You're sat at a magic club, and maybe people are talking about angle problems with a classic pass or a double lift, and you meet somebody and cook up the idea to cheat casinos. How does that conversation work?
Well, he was already, it wasn't like we farmed this thing and I was an equal part. He was way, way above me, but he saw something in me. He was doing some stuff, not, from my understanding, not a lot of hardcore stuff yet. But then things just happened. And it wasn't because of me, but, just the circumstance happened where he needed 5 dealers. And I had already, in fact, I said I'd moved here without a job. He taught me how to deal the game of blackjack in 2 days. The third day I had a dealing job. Literally, that's no exaggeration.
Whoa.
So he knew A, I could handle cards. B, I was a dealer before this opportunity came up. So I was a good person to be one of the 5 dealers. This was an out-of-town play. I'm not going to say where. And that's what kind of really jump-started what I was doing, my cheating career, if you want to call it that. Although I was already cheating, but not at the scale of what we did at this one casino.
Okay. So when did you find out that cheating was a possible thing? So if you were interested in Vegas when you were 7, when did you pick up a deck of cards? When did you get into magic? And then when did you figure out that you could cheat?
Well, 7, I picked up a deck of cards, and this obviously a long time ago, no video, no YouTube. So it was going to the library, reading books, almost breaking my fingers trying to figure out what they meant. And then I bought the Expert at the Card Table.
Right.
I was in high school. I can't tell you what year because I don't remember. But I got actually really good at doing those rounds, overhand shuffles. It's just something I could do. So that really started me thinking about the cheating aspect. Not that I was cheating. I was just doing little shows and showing people, that kind of stuff. But the cheating actually started when I met this guy. I call him Mr. CC. And then I saw that absolutely it could be done. And, he knew a lot of people and had a lot of knowledge. And we knew, or he knew and passed the information on to me, like the surveillance. Mainly it's black and white cameras back then. They're not
Right.
shooting one table, they're shooting 3 tables. So one surveillance camera for every 3 tables. That means they're at a wide angle. They're not going to pick anything up until they zoom in. If you don't give them a reason to zoom in, they're not going to. And that's part of the psychology.
Yeah. So, are you able to explain what the gig was that he needed 5 dealers in one casino for it to work? Are you able to tell us
Yeah, I
what that
mean, in
was?
general terms, yeah, without giving away the casino. Basically, there was a guy who, now this isn't the same guy, who got a job down there as a shift boss because he couldn't work in Vegas anymore. It was so hot. The
Right.
story with this guy is he would steal a hot stove. Anyway, he came up with this idea and the move. Told it to my friend, Mr. CC. So Mr. CC, actually what he did is very smart. He said, here, sit down and play. I'm going to do the move, catch it. I didn't catch it. So now I knew if I couldn't catch it, I knew a thing or two by then, that this was a good move. So he showed me the move, and it was not a hard move, but being a dealer, there's one way you grab the deck. To do this move, you had to grab the deck slightly different. And it was kind of odd. So I literally walked around with a deck in my hands almost every waking second for like a week or 2 to get used to that move. And I was also a dealer, still dealing. So yeah, I could do it. I could do the deck grip under fire in the casino. I wasn't cheating with the move yet. So then I felt comfortable. I could grab the deck that way and do the move. So then we all got hired. We had to get hired on the square. You know, we had to go to the casino. At this particular casino, the casino manager hired you, and he had no idea what was going on. And it was not easy to get hired. We went down there twice, and I remember him telling us, it was me and a buddy who was, going to be part of the team, saying, boys, you guys can get around the table fine, but I don't have any openings. So the third time we went down there, Mr. CC said, if you don't get hired now, we can't use you because we're starting, in a day or 2, whatever. So we audition again, and auditioning is getting on a live game and dealing the game. So the boss can see, yeah, you can handle the game. So we did this, and he started saying the same spiel, and I said, listen, we're desperate for money. We're almost homeless. We will work 1 day a week. And he hired us. And we got on full time. So that changed everything. So now we're in this casino. We have 5 cheating dealers. I mean, I don't remember exactly, but a couple on day, a couple on swing, one on graveyard, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember walking out onto the casino floor and saying, that's one of our guys. That's one of our guys. And there's a player. And there's a player that's part of the team. I believe we had 14 total. 2 shift bosses, 5 dealers, and 7 players. So we were playing this around the clock. And we were taking off a lot of money.
So that's why you needed 5 dealers, because you were running it all the time.
Going just like me, that would really be suspicious. And it's better to have 7 players instead of 1 player because they can't focus on, it's harder to focus on all 7. So Mr. CC knew that I could do more than the initial move. I could stack the deck as I'm dealing. And to me, that's the strongest move you can do. Number 1, it's a sure winner. If you sit down at my table, you're going to win. I'm going to stack your blackjack. You're going to get a winning hand. Number 2, it's virtually impossible to catch. If you're good at running those hands up, and believe me, I filmed myself over and over and over again with a video camera. And I'd do the move, I wouldn't do the move, in no particular order. Then I'd watch the video. I couldn't tell when I was doing the move. And this was right on top of me in color. So I had the confidence, they're just not going to know what's going on. So what happened, this casino would randomly polygraph people. No rhyme or reason, as to who they picked.
Staff or customers?
No, the staff, the employees. probably all the employees, but definitely the dealers. So each of our dealers got polygraphed and none of them could pass. And so they just got fired. They didn't get arrested or anything. For whatever reason, I never got polygraphed. Just one of those weird things that just happened. So now it was down to myself, one of the bosses, not the main boss. He already got canned. And this boss was smart because he goes, look, I don't want to know the move. You just tell me what to do. And basically his job was to have me, the boss would have well, he would have a thing like this with the dealers' names, but he's just pretending. He'd say, Marks, take out that table, which Mr. CC just happened to be sitting at. So it's always stronger when the casino sends you to your agent, the player, the cheater, than the player, I'm sorry, coming to you, the dealer. And that's part of the psychology. So basically I was the dealer, Mr. CC was the player, and we were destroying the game. Just on the fly, we came up with stuff, and it was scary how much we won. But he was so good at blackjack, Mr. CC, that he could beat some of the other dealers. Not as much as myself, but so it looked like he wasn't just beating me. He was beating other dealers. And of course, the story got he could beat any dealer, which was BS, but that was a great story. You know how stories get exaggerated.
Sure.
So that was really a big introduction. And I did a couple other things there that is too complicated to explain. But yeah, in my opinion, for what it's worth, those were the two best that ever did, cheating blackjack that worked together at that time. And it was great.
I can imagine. Can you paint a picture? I'm sure most of the people watching or listening to this will have seen Casino, which certainly sets the scene of that era. But can you paint a picture of Vegas in the 80s and how different was it from Vegas today?
Oh, in my opinion, the 80s, 70s, 80s were the best. It was a smaller town, so that was good. You get anywhere in town 15 minutes. The casinos were easy to get to. None of this paid parking BS. You didn't need a GPS to find the pit or the, show or anything. Comps were given out like water, so you could get a comp real easily. And specifically, the game of blackjack primarily was dealt handheld, single or double deck. There were some shoes, but a lot of handheld, which was fantastic. The players actually picked up the cards and, scraped for a hit. And, the way, in my opinion, the game should be played. Of course, I'm biased. It was just great. I mean, there's no comparison. In fact, I have a joke now, and I still live in Vegas. I say, I live in Nevada, but I don't know what city I live in because this isn't Vegas anymore. I mean, it is, but it isn't. Yeah, it's changed probably more than any other big city in the last 40 years. It's almost unrecognizable. I don't really like it that much anymore. I mean, the casinos are just, it's such a hassle to go to. I mean, most of the locals don't go to casinos, at least the ones on the strip. Traffic's a nightmare, parking, just not good. I mean, there's some good things, obviously, but overall, I much prefer the 80s. And most people.
Can you walk us through a typical night in Vegas when you were planning to, in inverted commas, work? Were you just treating it like a job? Was there preparation that you did before you went to do one of these shifts? What was your day
Good
like?
question. The only real preparation, because I had the moves down cold. I just did. So I didn't have to practice the moves or anything. And I was a decent dealer, so I didn't have to think how to deal the game. The only preparation was talking to my agents, seeing if they were going to come in. That's it. And I would have up to 3 agents a night come in. Not every night, of course, but...
Explain what an agent is.
An agent is a player that's actually part of my team.
Right.
Like, you would be my agent. We'd pretend not to know each other. We'd rarely socialize. Because remember, Vegas was a smaller town.
Sure.
If you and I are out to dinner and a boss just happens to walk past and see us when we supposedly don't know each other? Not. Nope. So my agent would come in, and I mean, we had it down cold, so we just immediately go to work. He would always sit at first base, because what I was doing is two things. I can show you with a deck of cards. I was flashing. I don't know if you can see that. See right there? I was flashing the top here. Let me move my fingers a little.
Yeah.
I was flashing the top card of the deck to my agent. That move. Of course, my hands weren't in the air or anything. They were down on the table.
Sure.
So that did two things. Number one, I would flash it before you ever made your bet as I was picking up the cards from the previous round. So now you knew exactly your first card. You had 100% betting efficiency. If you saw a 2 through 9, you would bet low, whatever we said low was. If you saw a 10 count card, 10, Jack, Queen, King, you would bet medium because you had a 12% advantage, which is huge. That's over 10 times more than the best card counter ever lived advantage. If you saw an ace back then when blackjack paid 3 to 2, you had a 52% starting advantage, which is unheard of. So you'd bet big. Now it gets even better. As I dealt the my final hole card, I would flash you your first hit card. So you would know, basically you're playing a face-up deck, your first card out. So if you have a 16, I have a 6-up, but you see a 5 coming, you hit it because you have a 21. All your double downs, you would get a 20 or 21. You wouldn't double down unless you saw a 10 coming or an ace, depending. So you're going to win virtually every double down, which is a huge advantage then. You're going to not bust out those stiffs. If you have a 15, I have a 10 up, but you know let's see, now I'm getting confused because I'm thinking of another play. But if you have a 15, but you see a 10 coming, you don't hit it.
Right.
Because you'd bust. Even if I have a 10 up, because I might have a 500 and I could bust. And the dealer busts about 28% of the time. So that's like more than 1 out of 4. So those bad hands you get, 12 through 16, you're either going to improve them vastly by seeing the top card, or you're not going to hit when you would absolutely lose. So that's a big advantage. So not only did you have a betting advantage, you had a playing advantage. So right there, we kind of figured with those two, one move done at 2 different times had about a 33% advantage, which is huge. But then when I started stacking the deck for you, it just went up to, we never had a losing session. Out of over 500 sessions, never lost once.
What
But
was
I mean, how can you with that kind of edge?
Yeah,
now,
yes, it would be difficult.
The thing is, you don't win every hand. And we don't want you to win every hand, because that would look suspicious.
Yeah.
And the psychology comes in. First thing is you would buy in a weird amount. And then I always tell, if the boss asks, I'd always tell the boss you bought in more. So right there, let's say you bought in 500, I say 300. He sees your chips. Oh, you're already $200 loser. Not really, but it's setting up the psychology. Then the boss comes around, you lose a hand, you cry a little. You don't go overboard, but you want to put in his mind you're a loser. That's the best thing you can do. When you cash out, color up your chips to me, the dealer. You don't cash out all your chips. You go south with some, which is not a move. But let's say you bought in 500, you cash out 300. You're a $200 loser. Really, you won 1,000. So that's how I got a lot of longevity out of the same agent. If you're coming around and virtually every time the boss thinks you're a loser, well, great. Keep coming in, Damien. We love losers kind of thing.
Yeah. No heat at all.
And what you would do is 2 things. If I would know what table I'm going to be at, and there's different ways, I don't want to go into that, but then I would go up to the break room when I'm on break. I think I dealt 45 minutes, 15-minute break. back then there were no cell phones, go to the payphone. I would call you, but I would disguise the call like playing racquetball because I was actually playing racquetball. I'd say, hey, Damien, tomorrow I have a court at 8 a.m., court 10. That meant come in tonight at 8 p.m., table 10. So what you would actually do is come in about 15 minutes earlier, play against just a normal dealer. So now the boss sees you playing with dealer A. Then I know, I go to table 10 because I'm supposed to. I'm not breaking any rules. You are playing against me. We win. I leave. A new dealer comes in. You stay and play against him. So now the boss sees you playing against 3 dealers. So it doesn't look like you're targeting me. It's another part of the psychology.
It almost seems as if the psychological aspect of it is more, to a degree, more important than the work.
Yeah, there's an old saying that I kind of agree with. There's no perfect move, only a perfect time. You can do a move terrible. If nobody sees it, you got it on. But if, you keep coming in, beating me, even though they don't know what I'm doing, you're going to get 86th. Not arrested, but say, hey, Damon, get out. And I'm going to get fired. And that's not good because you can't make any more money.
Sure.
Yeah.
Talk us through the first time you cheated in a money game.
Oh, wow. I actually don't really remember. It was
I would have thought that would be there still.
It was probably the very first place I broke in. Virtually every dealer has to go to what we call break-in house, a very small casino. So I'd go through dry runs, but I wouldn't cheat. Because I figured...
sorry, just to clarify, this involves you getting a job at this small casino.
Yeah, I got hired and stuff. It was easy because break-in houses, the turnover is huge. Nobody wants to stay there as a dealer. The money's not good. You put your 2-3 months in and then you go. So they're constantly needing dealers. So that was good. So I go there and I'm like shuffling up, practicing the riffle shuffle, but at the end destroying it. So nothing happens. But I said, okay, what I'm going to do at this casino, practice, but not have anybody come in because they sweat the money so much. If we won a lot, I think one of the bosses would have had a heart attack, seriously, and that wouldn't have been good. But now the next place I went to, then I started cheating for sure. 2 things. Back then, virtually every casino, you would look under, I'm talking about the dealer now, would look under his hole card if he had a 10 up, or look at his hole card to see if I had an ace. If I did, I'd turn it over. The round was over. It's a saving time for the casino. So I would look, I have a 10 up. I look under, I have a 6. You're my agent. I would signal you I have a stiff. So now you're not going to hit any of your stiffs. That's real simple. Anybody can do that. But I started stacking the deck too, because it was actually a shoe game. So I couldn't do the flash. I could still stack the deck. Now, obviously not as often because I'd have to wait till the entire shoe got dealt. But I was doing that. And actually, this particular company, you worked at 2 casinos. You went back and forth. They were both shoe games. I was both cheating at both casinos. And it worked well, no problem. And that's after that, I'm almost positive that's when Mr. CC said, I need 5 dealers. I want you 1. And that was handheld. And that, was a much bigger jump in what I was doing.
What was the biggest win you ever had? And how did it feel at
The biggest
moment?
was what we call a computer cooler. Do you know what a cooler is?
I know what a cooler is, but I don't know what a computer cooler is.
Okay. The essence of a computer, a cooler, you got to switch the cards, switch the decks. Okay. Without the switch, there is no cooler. Wrong. This is how brilliant this is. Now, this back in the 80s. So most people didn't even have a computer.
Sure.
So we had a custom-made computer in 3 parts. The motherboard had Velcro on it, was strapped to what we call the recorder's back. And he had a jacket on, obviously, concealing it. The keyboard was a keypad in his pocket, pants pocket, not the toe thing, because it was too hard to do the toes. If you get one card wrong, it ruins the whole thing. The speaker was a earphone in his ear, but he had long hair, so you couldn't see the wire. There's no wireless back then.
Yeah.
What he would do, we would take over a game. Everybody was down with it, all the players and the dealer. The recorder would like stand behind me. I was on first base because he's going to stand there and record every card. It was a face-up shoe game. And it would be suspicious if he stood there the whole time and didn't know anybody. So him and I would talk like we're friends and just, he doesn't like to gamble, some BS like that. He records every card. So now the computer knows a sequence of like 5 out of 6 decks. And the computer has just a couple simple instructions. Make it so the dealer loses by normally busting out and the player wins by having a better hand. Now there's some rules. The player can't stand on anything less than 12. The player can't hit 17 or higher. But with that sequence, and here's the variables that made it work. The BP, the big player who would play the cooler, could play 1 to 3 hands and could take X amount of hit cards. So with those variables, the computer program could just about figure out every round how the player would win and the dealer would lose. Now what happened is after the plastic cut card came out, the dealer, dealt the 5 hands, then he'd have to shuffle all 6 decks. Well, it was better to have a dealer who had worked at a place 10, 15 years and had a perfect record than hire a guy like me and after 3 months all of a sudden, casino loses 100+ thousand. Now, I could do the false shuffles easily. So what we did with the dealer, we taught him the sky shuffle. And the sky shuffle, I can demonstrate it here, hopefully. This might not look perfect, but you get the idea. Now remember, the eye in the sky is way up there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's even more of an angle, but you get the idea. No money has hit the table yet as a dealer is shuffling. So there's no reason for anybody to watch this shuffle. And we had what we call turns to make sure nobody watched it. Somebody cut into a boss, somebody cut into the little old lady watching the shuffle for whatever reason. So they would be distracted. The sky shuffle is just simply this. It's not a shuffle. All I'm doing is that, really. But from the sky, a big distance away, it looks good. It'll beat the eye. And that's exactly why it was invented. So the dealer...
So it was just for the eye in the sky.
Yeah. And no boss.
So for audio listeners, that was splitting the deck into 2 halves and making the sound of the riffle and then just shoving them together with a little bit of cover
one half
on the top.
On top, the other is your riffle.
Yeah.
But from the above, it looks pretty decent, actually.
Sure.
No boss would watch it because what we would
do... There's no reason to.
The dealer was shuffling the cards. We'd have what we call a fake BP buy in at a diagonal opposite table with 10,000 cash. All the attention's going to go there.
Yeah.
So the dealer, we ensured the dealer, don't worry, nobody's going to see the shuffle. So he would do the shuffle, and then we would time it so he'd get the tap, and a new dealer who wasn't part of the play would deal off the game and lose 100. Yeah. Yeah. So now they could question that dealer,
all day
forever.
long. Yeah, polygraph him all day.
The other great thing is the cards, they could take them to the FBI and examine until rapture. There's nothing on the cards. So the whole thing is, once the money hit the table, basically everything was done. The only thing that had to be done, and this was pretty easy, is the BP had to get the signals from the recorder. Now the recorder's now off in the audience because the minute the BP fires up, people start watching. So the recorder's just one of the guys in the audience, and he just has to give the BP 2 signals. How many hands to play, 1, 2, or 3, how many hit cards. So 2 simple signals. That's it. And what was great with the BP, he'd win a little, and he's betting table max, let's say 2,000 a hand. He'd get quarters, $25 chips, and he'd take one, turn around, and throw it in the audience. That's when he got the signal. So it was beautiful. So that's a computer cooler. That's what we did. The biggest score. Now this is 1980s money, 150,000. Now of course that got churned up, you know.
Yeah, sure, but still.
Yeah, that was a big. It'd be like 400,000 now, 300,000.
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
So that was a
Wow.
good night, to say the least.
What are your thoughts on the portrayal of gambling cheats in movies and TV shows? How close do they get to what you were really doing?
Actually, technically not that accurate. But since I have written screenplays a little bit, it's Hollywood. I know why they're doing it. And 90%, at least 90% of the audience has no clue. You know, they think that's the way it's done. And there's nothing wrong with that. Guys like me know. You know, some movies are better than others. Some are like, you're just rolling your eyes. I mean, even the way the dealer's dealing, you're going, why didn't they hire somebody who really knows? You know? But so is it real accurate? No. But it's still good. It's entertaining. And that's the premise of the movie, or the objection of the what the movie wants to do, the object of the movie. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, it's entertaining, so it doesn't matter. What are you doing now, and how has your past life influenced your current life, if it has?
Well, I did kind of a 180. I got out of gambling. Now I'm back in, not as a gambler, but what I'm pursuing is a show in Vegas about my life as a cheater, you know, blackjack cheat. Because I think people, mainly the older people, because they remember, you know, the 70s, 80s, where you could, you know, pick up the cards and actually hold the cards, you know, and scrape for a hit. And so I would take them back to that time in gambling. And he, you know, started out, you know, the year 1980. Reagan was president. Top movies, Back to the Future, and the casinos primarily dealt single and double blackjack. And, you know, get them into the mood, and then start talking about what I did, do the moves, then expose the moves, you know, and a lot of different moves, and then have a question and answer, because I'm sure people would love to ask some questions.
Well,
So that's
I
what I'm
have certainly
pursuing.
enjoyed asking them.
And I think, you know, that would go over big, and have it an intimate setting. Because
Yeah,
I want people to be able to see. Of course, we'd have the video
sure.
camera and shooting down, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but have it maybe 30 people, a real exclusive type of show with, of course,
Well,
a blackjack table.
of course, of course, of course. Well, people will be able to, you ready for the segue? People will be able to ask you questions in week 3 of June's Masterclass, where we have the live Q&A with you and me and everybody else that's part of Vanishing Inc. Masterclass. Now, tell people what they can, because I think this is the first time we've had a gambling person. No, of course not. We had Mr. Turner. But what are you going to be telling people about, and what can they expect to see and learn?
Well, I think they'll really enjoy it and learn a lot. It is all blackjack moves that were really done, that I did under fire in the casinos back in the 80s. So this is the real stuff, from stacking the deck, flashing, whole card, mucking, which is switching cards, uh, steer game. I mean, there's a lot of things. Actually, it was filmed in 2023, so I forget a few of the things, but it's very thorough. It's I think 2 1 hour, and then the Q&A, and we made it real tight. There's not any fluff. It's really going to be good. It's very visual. You know, it's not just talking. You'll see the move, or you'll see a demo of the move, and then you'll see how to do it. Now, it's not teaching them, you know, but you'll get, or the people watching will get a really good understanding. Now, the magicians can use these moves in their gambling expose and make their exposés better, in my opinion. And again, this is the real stuff that was really done. This isn't Hollywood.
So, who's the lectures aimed at? Because frankly, I can't. My second deal is just about passable. Bottom deal, haven't got one. Centre deal, haven't got one. So can I come? Is it? Do you need to have a certain skill with a deck of cards in order to be able to get something out of it?
Not really. And there's all kind of different moves, and you can learn these moves, But again, it would mainly be targeted to magicians that either do gambling exposés or have an interest in starting to do them. Because this will be, again, the real work explained very well, and I'm sure they'll get something out. Because that was my goal, is to make sure the audience, whoever that is, when they leave or finish watching, say, yeah, this was a good use of my time. I got something from this. Hopefully I can use at least one or two things. I talked about the psychology. So when they do their gambling expo, they can sound like they really know what they're talking about. Which, if you don't know what you're talking about and you do the moves, there's a disconnect there. But if you know what you're talking about and do the moves, now you're believable, which is very important in my opinion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For people that have not had one of the trial subscriptions, you can do that right now. So you can go to vanishinginkmagic.com/masterclass, and for $1, you can get 7 days access and see whether it's something that's that makes sense for you or not. So you can try out Dustin's first lecture on Sunday at the time of recording and see if it's for you. For everybody that's been there before, now that you're getting for the first time ever access to past masterclass lectures. There's 250 hours of content. It is the best value you can possibly get in magic. So go along and sign up. Dustin, we finished with 4 quick fire questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
Favorite pizza topping?
Pineapple. I know, but I love pineapple.
Controversial, but I'll let it slide.
Yes.
There's no judgment. This is a safe space, Dustin. Okay. Favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Favorite person or people that make music?
You mean a group?
Sure. Or a singer, whatever.
Leonard Skinner.
Leonard Skinner. And finally, who would you rather fight? One massive Andy or 100 tiny Joshuas?
Massive Andy.
Boom. Dustin Marks, thank you so much for your time. I am very much looking forward to seeing the masterclass, and I'm sure everybody that listening and watching is too. I appreciate you giving up so much of your time this morning, and I'll see you in 3 weeks on Sunday for the live Q&A.
Okay, hey, thanks. It's been great. Appreciate it.